Lets it fly. R-I-D-I-C-U-L-O-U-S. Ridiculous.
They're going to have to trade the run for the out. The throw over to third. Ball game.
Wow. The fifth year to try and put it away with an ace. That's a storybook ending.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It's time for episode 38 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. I hope you caught the Thanksgiving predictions last week. I did, in fact, record that on the Wednesday evening before Thanksgiving to get it out in time for the holiday, but the predictions in it were so not good. I'm going to review those, plus the worst clock management decision in the history of the NFL and how it cost a couple of people dearly. Then I'm going back to the Juan Soto saga in the MLB, and I'll rank the destinations where he could go based on the team fit, the lineup around him, the deals on the table, things like that. Rumor is that the decision could be coming as soon as next week, and he will definitely be the highest paid athlete in America not named Shohei Ohtani. Soto is the one huge name that's coming off the market soon. Hopefully he signs somewhere next week, and we can all just sort of start thinking about everybody else, because there's going to be tons of other awesome free agents. Then finally, I had to record on a Friday again, so we get another Lions game to talk about. Let's rock. We start with the Lions and Bears game on Thanksgiving. It really wasn't a game at all in the first half. Detroit went into the break leading 16-0, and the Bears only had a handful of first downs. Anyone who's ever seen a divisional game in the NFL, though, should have kind of felt like it could turn around quickly coming out of the half, and that's exactly what happened. The Lions have had a really young secondary for the entire Dan Campbell era, and across the board, they started committing penalties and giving up chunks through the air with just the mental mistakes. Keenan Allen, their receiver, was one of the Bears' big pickups in the offseason, coming over from the Chargers. He was supposed to be anyway, but he kind of hadn't done much coming in. He ended up getting 2 touchdowns in the second half, and the Bears, somewhat unbelievably, had a great chance to win on their final drive. Now, like certain other huge boneheaded mistakes, I'm actually not going to beat that final sequence to death, but I do want to break it down a little bit, if for no other reason than to describe exactly how not to manage a clock. The big takeaway from that whole sequence at the end of the game is it cost the Bears head coach Matt Eberflus his job directly. Maybe they would have fired him at the end of the year anyway, but he now left them no choice. The most critical part of the game, the Bears had the ball at around the Lions' 41-yard line with 33 seconds left after Caleb Williams took a sack, and they had one timeout. Don't get me wrong, you shouldn't ever really take a sack in that situation, try and roll out and throw the ball away, but then they just didn't call the timeout ever. When the snap finally got off at around 6 seconds left, after kind of just a bunch of chickens with their head cut off, everybody looking around, they had no choice but to throw it to the end zone. Caleb made a half-decent throw to their rookie receiver, Rome Odunze, who, to his credit, actually ran the route deep enough to get all the way to the end zone, which was good, but it was a little bit overthrown and incomplete, and then the clock ran out. I still struggle to understand how a real-life NFL coach could do this, and kind of how he could have the audacity to defend that decision to the media. Coaches and quarterbacks both have the ability and the responsibility, really, to look up at that game clock and call that timeout. But Caleb's a 22-year-old rookie, and Matt Eberflus is 54. It would have been a 59-yard field goal if they never gained another yard from the 41-yard line there. That's not unmakeable, but of course probably not the best bet. They absolutely should have completed one more pass inbounds to get back into comfortable field goal range, then spiked it and checked if they had enough time to get off another throw to the end zone. Almost any other option is correct, except exactly what they did, and I think that's why it takes the cake as the worst clock management ever. I won't even get into the absolute tongue lashing that he's said to have gotten in the locker room from some of the players, but he definitely earned it. Look that up if you want to read a little bit more about it. Matt Eberflus very explicitly lost the locker room on one single play. So naturally, the Cowboys and Giants game, the 4:30 game on Thanksgiving, was actually very entertaining. I thought that was going to be the one to take a nap through, but Drew Lock and Cooper Rush gave us a little bit of a quarterback duel. The raw numbers weren't so great. Both of them went under 200 yards passing, but Drew Lock had 4 carries for 57 and the game-winning touchdown run right before the 2-minute warning. As a third-string-ish quarterback that no one expected really anything of on a team that was 2-9 at the time, he was really impressive. Dallas got a pick six, and their best player, it probably continues to be Brandon Aubrey, their kicker. I'm not kidding at all, and I want you to quote me. Brandon Aubrey will be the first man ever to hit a 70-yard field goal. It might not be this year, but it's not going to be long. He has the best pure leg strength in the history of the league. 27-20 Cowboys in this one. Technically, Dallas could still be in the playoff race, but they'd probably need to win out and then get a bunch of help. Yeah, that's all not happening. 2 of the 3 wildcard spots are essentially guaranteed to go to the Packers and Vikings right now, and I'm guessing the Commanders will get the other one in the NFC, but considering all their injuries, the Cowboys are playing, pretty inspired. The Giants, well, they have some young talent on both sides of the ball, honestly, but the Daniel Jones deal set them back for years. They're mathematically eliminated now from the playoffs, and probably for the next 4 or 5 years already if I had to roll the dice. I predicted a 16-10 score, which was kind of insultingly low, and I thought the Giants could pull off the quote-unquote upset. Well, I was very close on the total offense combined. I said 550 yards, and they ended up at 564. There weren't even too many punts. They had 5 on each side, and I had called for at least 7 each. Overall, again, predictions not so good, but a unironically really enjoyable game that I was not expecting. That was nice. Now we move on to the Thanksgiving night game. I was trying to believe in the Miami Dolphins as a playoff team, and I just can't anymore. They looked so cold, as in physically shivering. Why do you think teams that play home games in the cold win in the playoffs? The Packers made a field goal as the first half clock ran out, and they went into the break up 24-3. Tua actually had a great game, at least from that point on, but a lot of that's about the peripherals, and he racked up a lot of the stats in garbage time. 37 of 46 for 365 yards and 2 touchdowns. Well, you would typically be thrilled by that, but still, they kind of got smacked, and they only ran for 39 yards. You just can't really win games doing that. Jonnu Smith, the Dolphins' top tight end, continues to be a monster. 10 catches, 113 yards. But the Packers are just so much tougher. They also had 5 sacks on Tua, and Miami didn't manage any. It turns out you also need to win the trenches in the cold. The Dolphins are another team that aren't mathematically eliminated, but again, even if they win out, they can't guarantee that they'd be in the playoffs, and I don't think that'll happen anyway. Now for the Black Friday game, I was insanely wrong about the Chiefs and Raiders. The Raiders never once looked outmatched in this game, and they took KC down to the wire. Now, granted, almost every other team has 2, and the Chiefs are a handful of plays away from, being a 500 team maybe. Instead, they only have 1 loss. The Raiders, just like the Bears, made a mistake to lose this game in the last few moments, which I found sad, but it was not shocking. Their rookie center, Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon, snapped the ball on a silent count, and then Aiden O'Connell wasn't ready for it, so it got away for a fumble after it kind of hit off his chest and Casey recovered it. Then the Raiders were cooked. Good things that are happening for Vegas, though. They have literally the best tight end in the league in rookie Brock Bowers. I think he should be a unanimous first-team All-Pro. He is that amazing. They have tons of individual good players, and they'll probably make a good turnaround as a whole franchise pretty soon, but this is just not their year, and they're now 2-10. Plus, they might be one of the next teams to make a coaching change. We'll see. I predicted a Kansas City defensive touchdown. I said this would be the biggest blowout of the week, and Kareem Hunt was supposed to have a big day on the ground. Granted, I didn't know that their top running back, Isaiah Pacheco, was going to come back from IR, but still, I went 0 on this game. I still love the idea of having a Black Friday game, and I do hope that the NFL sticks with it long term. I love that it's on Prime Video as well, and you don't need another add-on service or anything too. That's always a W. Speaking of Prime Video, I said I got to watch the Lions and Packers game from Thursday night, the 5th. The Lions won it on a walk-off field goal from the reigning NFC Special Teams Player of the Month, Jake Bates. You knew that Dan Campbell was going to make a few aggressive decisions, but 5 separate 4th down tries, I truly believe that was too many. One of them got stuffed around their own 30-yard line, and then Green Bay scored a touchdown almost immediately afterwards. The last one was the most psychotic fourth down decision probably that I have ever seen. With a 4th and 1 at the Packers' 21-yard line and 43 seconds left, they ran the ball with David Montgomery passing up a field goal, and it worked. Jared Goff got his foot stepped on. He fell to his knees. He had to hand it off awkwardly, and it still worked. I've never met a coach in my life who would make that call. The rationale is, technically the Packers would have had some time to take the ball and tie the game had the Lions kicked the field goal then. And if they didn't convert on that 4th down, Green Bay would have been backed up and had a fairly long way to go to get into scoring range without much time. Just because this call worked doesn't mean it's the right call. You have to be willing to change your plan, to not be so attached to that identity that, oh, we're the team that makes all the huge gambles all the time, and even more so in the playoffs. It's exactly the issue that crushed them in the NFC Championship game last year against the Niners. They were 1 of 3 on 4th down in that game, and the 2 misses were killers. It was a classic game of who gets the ball last, and a lot of division games are like that when you go down the stretch and things. There were plenty of yards and points, but you don't have to make the game of football any harder than it needs to be, and the Lions did that especially with that first 4th down miss and could have done it again at the end. Now let's talk about the biggest fish to fry in the whole wide world of MLB free agency. Of course, it's Juan Soto. He is, unfortunately, the second best player on his own team, the Yankees, but he's also one of the best players on earth. It is incredibly rare to see a player that cracked the big leagues as a teenager, in general, but it's even rarer for that guy to be a superstar for 7 years from that point and still be probably moving on to his 3rd team. The most important stats to describe Juan Soto, the incredible strengths around his game, 5 Silver Slugger awards, a career .421 on-base percentage, that is higher than Mickey Mantle and 17th all-time. Most of the guys above him, their pictures are in black and white. Soto has 201 home runs and 36.4 career WAR at the age of 26. He has one of the best batter's eyes in history. He's led the league in walks 3 times, and almost every season of his career, he's walked more than he's struck out. A complete unicorn. His style just isn't how the game is played anymore. Now, his defense is meh. His base running is average to not so good, but you add up the total package with him, and he is generational. Technically, there's a chance Juan Soto still goes back to the Yankees, but it looks more and more likely every day that he's leaving, so I won't even really consider them in the rankings of top landing spots for him. The Yankees just have other giant contracts to pay out, namely, of course, their now 2-time MVP Aaron Judge. Let's talk about the other rumored destinations and deals on the table and see if we can't find the best landing spot for him. First team that was supposed to be the front runner, and I do believe still is, the New York Mets. Steve Cohen, their GM, is a hedge fund manager. I can't say for certain that makes him the richest guy in baseball, but it kind of would make sense, right? He's been in place there since 2020, and he's thrown out some monster contracts before. Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander are 2 that, on paper didn't sound so bad, but obviously did not work out at all. Those guys both cost over $40 million a year. Neither of them have actually pitched for the Mets in a couple of years, and yet they're still getting paid like kings because of the way that they moved money around in those contracts. Edwin Diaz, their closer, he even got over $100 million for 5 years. That's probably too much for any closer pretty much ever. But Cohen is maybe the least shy guy in the league about just throwing cash at people. The fit is clear, and they're number 1 probably in terms of money that they'd be willing to shell out at the high end. The fit is clear with the Mets on the field, in the lineup and all. An outfielder with a great left-handed bat is kind of the one thing they could use more of. Plus, they have one of the top sluggers in Pete Alonso on the open market who still might choose to leave, but that remains to be seen. If you say that Alonso is going to leave, the top destination for Juan Soto is the New York Mets. Number 2 on the list is not a bad choice, especially for Juan personally, but it would handicap the rest of the franchise a little bit more. The Toronto Blue Jays want to put together a super team for a year or two. At least, it kind of appears that that's what their plan is. If they land Soto, they can probably do it. However, they'd almost certainly have to let their two young stars walk after their rookie deals. Those guys, of course, are their shortstop Bo Bichette and first baseman Vlad Guerrero Jr. These guys have both gotten MVP votes. In fact, Vlad finished second in 2021, and he just won the AL batting title. They're both studs who will get a ton of money from somebody when that time comes, right? It wouldn't be a good move for Toronto long-term, no matter if Soto even came in and played at an MVP level, unless maybe it actually brought them a World Series in the first, year or two of the deal. Outside of Vlad and Bo Bichette, the offense does need some help with the Blue Jays. The deal that they're reportedly offering is going to top out at around $700 million, which would match the total money that Shohei Ohtani got last year with the Dodgers. There's some talks that maybe that's going to go up to about $750, but that's probably the cap. They're supposed to be willing to make the highest offer out of any team in the race, so anybody else would, probably have to match this and give Juan more things personally that he wants to go there for. Toronto, it's going to be probably the coldest environment in the league. He might have to learn French. There are probably better places for nightlife, but for his own sake, for him as a player, Blue Jays, not a bad choice. They're number 2. Now, the Red Sox are probably on the outside looking in because it just doesn't seem like they're going to match any of the highest offers. The experts are also speculating that the deal might run for 15 years, and anybody who tells me that they know what a franchise will look like in 15 years is kidding themselves. The Red Sox finished .500 this year and 13 games back of the Yankees. They never really spend as much as the Yankees do in free agency. Plus, they don't have that real 1B to Soto's 1A, Aaron Judge is obviously the superstar, so Soto can take a little bit of a backseat at times. If he were to go to the Red Sox, he'd have to carry more of the load there than anywhere else. Interestingly, though, Boston only has the 13th most salary assigned for this coming year. They could probably have room to make the deal work financially, but I think the fit is not so good. For that reason, Red Sox come in at number 3. Of course, the Dodgers have to be mentioned because they're in the hunt for literally every big-name free agent, but I gotta feel like it's impossible for them to move enough money around to make this happen, especially with just signing Blake Snell for their rotation. What I'm going to do, for fairness, is include the Dodgers and the field, or the whole rest of the league, at number 4. I think the top 3 are pretty much locked in, and unless there's a mystery team no one's heard of yet, it'll be between those 3. The annual winter meetings start Monday, so hold on to your hats. That is about all I have for today. Juan Soto, please make up your mind, and whenever you sign, just settle down, buy a house, start a family, because you're going to be there a really, really long time. As always, whatever else catches my eye is always on the table, and feel free to hit me on my socials. You know the things. Leave a like, comment, and share. This has been episode 38 of White Noise Sports with Tanner White. Thanks for joining me.
Pointing upfield, lets it fly. RIDICULOUS. Ridiculous.
They're going to have to trade the run for the out. The throw over to third. Ball game.
Wow. The 5th year to try and put it away with an ace. That's a storybook ending.